over to you.
Absolutely, thank you. And I later on, I took the liberty working with Yesenia and Aurelio to prepare a meeting for today. It's a proposed agenda, sorry, a meeting agenda is a proposed agenda. We don't want to impose anything, but we thought it was a good starting point. So I'll ask in a minute to share my screen, but for now, the reason why we are having this meeting is because we needed to get this discussion off the ground as soon as possible, especially if we want to go ahead and start planning our first tree planting event as soon as possible, because we're about to miss the tree planting season for this year. So that's the urgency of having this meeting today before our general meeting tomorrow. And also for all of you that have not had the chance to meet Yesenia Venegas and Aurelio Mendoza, they are the two Climate Corps fellows that will be helping us to implement these urban greening and vegetative barrier strategies. So I will ask everybody to introduce yourself, say your name, if you're a member of that committee or which organization you're representing. And then I will, after everybody goes, I will ask Yesenia and Aurelio to introduce themselves. So why don't we start with the steering committee members first? So I can call the first one, and then you guys start popping or popcorning to the next one. So I'm gonna start with Janet.
Had to unmute me. Hi, I'm Janet. I'm with Cagley Environmental, which is Cedar Avenue Recycling, a landfill, rock aggregate. I also work with River Tree Volunteers, and we've already been doing tree planting on the San Joaquin River. We did 2 sets over by Milburn. So we've partnered with Scout Island and I think Tree Fresno.
I'm glad that you're going to be able to share all that expertise with this project as well. Janet, you want to pick someone else?
I'm on a phone, so I can't see who's on.
No worries, I'll do it for you. So let's go.
Thank you, ma'am.
Kim. You're muted, Kim.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Kimberly McCoy, Fresno Building Healthy Communities, Project Director. Hello, everyone.
Great. You want to pick someone else?
Sure. I will pick Ed.
Thank you, Kim. My name's Ed Ward. I'm extremely interested in vegetative barriers and the value. I think that was a solution that we lost in the 70s and 80s that has been moved off the board, but a very, very important piece that can provide some relief for our impacted communities. Thank you. And I will pick Peter Nguyen.
Hi, everyone. This is Peter. I'm a grad student at UC Davis, part of an AB 617 SERP implementation study, and just happy to be here. And yeah, I'm just here observing the meeting. So thank you.
Okay, let's move on to carbs. So why don't we start with Brian?
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Brian Moore, and I work at their Resources Board in the Office of Community Air Protection. And I work mainly with the Central Valley and East Bay and I guess Northern California communities. And yeah, I did a personal interest when I was in our research division. We did a lot of studies on the effectiveness of vegetative barriers. I think it's a very neat thing to consider because of the co-benefits. So yeah, that's it. And should I hand it off, Naimeen, to somebody else at CARB? Cool, I'll go. I saw Crystal, have you gone yet? I see you there. Oh.
Hi guys. Crystal Lazard. I'm with CARB's Environmental Justice Unit. So I am not an expert in vegetative barriers, but I would like to pretend I am, but I'm not. So I'm mostly here to learn and support you guys. I'm scanning the list. Do we have other CARB
I see Megan, Crystal.
Oh, Megan. Tagging you in, Megan. Sorry, it took a sec.
Hi, I'm Megan McKay. I'm with CARB, but I'm in the monitoring and laboratory division. So I do air quality, and I know way more about instruments than I know anything else that CARB does. So feel free always to ask me. I've been with this community since the beginning, and I try and hit all the meetings. I won't probably be able to hit this whole meeting, but I love trees. I love vegetation. I love being outdoors. So I'm excited to see where it goes and how it changes and gets involved. And I see my boss is online, so I'll tag Joe Guerrero next.
Hi, this is Joe, and I'm just here to smell the trees and see how this is going.
Thank you. Hopefully it's going to be real trees near very soon. Let's go with our guests and partners and good friends from Tree Fresno. Mona?
Sure, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm Mona Nyandero Cummings, and I'm the CEO of Tree Fresno. And we have a special environmental project through the California Air Resources Board that we've been working on for the last 3 years. We built our first, it takes some time, obviously, to be able to plan for these and get the permits and the partners necessary to build vegetative barriers and to study air quality alongside that. So our partners in this project are Sonoma Tech, and we have built in the last year 4 projects. One south of Fresno in Fowler, off of some basins, so flood basins next to 99. And then we built 3 in Fresno, one at California 99, which consisted of 44 Mondale Pines, and then 2 at schools. So Tehipite Middle School, which is located sort of at the base of 3 busy roadways. And obviously that's an indicator that we need more trees in that particular area. So that had about 61 trees. It really transformed that campus. Incidentally, that the principal had been asking for trees for years for that campus. So through this particular SEP, we are able to offer the opportunity to both install the trees and irrigation associated with the project. So it makes it more of a realistic project for a unified school district that may not have the budget necessarily to support a new project like that. And then we recently planted at Kirk Elementary School. And that's just a couple of dozen trees, again, transforming that particular campus. I'll mention that we have 2 schools on the horizon that we're looking at with Sonoma Tech. They've been identified by Sonoma Tech as ones that could benefit the community nearby, can benefit greatly for the installation of the vegetative barrier. And I've mentioned this before on previous meetings that I've had about this, that there's a qualification on building a vegetative barrier, and we want to make the conditions better for the people who live nearby. So Bachman and also Leavenworth elementary schools are being considered in the very near future for building vegetative barriers. So we're excited about the project. Tree Fresno is excited about the fact that this is kind of in our portfolio of the ability to put in trees. We obviously, if you're familiar with Tree Fresno's work, we put in a couple thousand trees a year throughout mostly Fresno County, but also Madera, Kings, and Tulare counties. And we do a lot of that through the CAL FIRE funding, through the urban and community forestry grants. So that doesn't require the building of vegetative barriers, but we've become very skilled in identifying and being able to construct vegetative barriers, and again, that permitting process that goes with it. So excuse me for long-winded, but I thought since this is a vegetative barrier meeting that it's best to tell you what we're up to. So
Absolutely, and that was exactly the purpose of all of us coming together, and especially inviting you to this meeting, because you have all this expertise, because you're doing this work, and we want to complement, not duplicate. So thank you for all that.
Thank you. And there's plenty of room for this kind of work. And we feel good about the knowledge base that we're starting from. Obviously, you know, Tree Fresno has been planting since 1985. We're hitting 50,000 trees this year. So, and on this call, I want to mention, we also have 2 Climate Action Corps fellows working with our organization that are happy to be working with CCEJN. And we have Eliza Jane Palau and Alonso Santos Gonzalez, who have joined Tree Fresno. So Eliza Jane, you want to introduce yourself?
Please, go ahead.
Sure. My name is Eliza Jane, and I just started, I think it's already been 2 weeks with Tree Fresno as their Climate Action Corps Fellow.
Thanks. Alonso?
Yeah, my name is Alonso Santos Gonzalez, and yeah, I'm the other Tree Fresno Climate Action Corps. Yeah, Fresno born and raised, so happy to be here as well.
Thanks. And I noticed there's a couple of residents that are part of our steering committee who have joined, and they have not introduced themselves. So we'll start with Genevieve and then move to our Spanish speakers. So Genevieve.
Hi, everyone. Genevieve, Tower resident of Fresno. And that's it.
Thank you. Isabel y Estela, ¿se quieren presentar, por favor?
Sí, buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Isabel Vargas y soy residente del sur de Fresno.
Gracias.
And this is Kevin Hamilton. I also joined from CCSC.
Oh, welcome.
That was
Estela.
Isabel. Sorry, let me just go ahead and for people who don't know Spanish, that's okay. That was Isabel. She is a resident of the South Fresno community.
This is Kevin again. I'm a member of the CSC.
Tardes.
Oh, sorry.
Mi nombre es Estela Ortega y soy aquí de Fresno. Vivo aquí en el Distrito 7.
Gracias, Estela. Bienvenida.
And that is Estela. She is also a resident of the District 7 area.
And thank you, Kevin. We notice you're here and we welcome you for participating. Now I'm going to turn it over to all the Air District staff, and then we can move on to the agenda.
I'll start. My name is Jamie Holt. I'm the Chief Communications Officer with the Valley Air District, and I will kick it to Madi.
Marisela Velasquez, also with the Valley Air District and part of Jamie's team and working with several of the AB 617 communities. And I'll pass it on to Heather.
Hello, everyone. Heather Hanks. I work in Jamie's team too. I'm with the Valley Air District. We do outreach in the communities and very happy to see you all. Zong.
Hi, my name is Zong Song, and I'm also part of the Outreach and Communications team. And welcome, everyone. Let's go with Jessica.
Hi, all. My name is Jessica Olson, and I am a program manager with the Air District, and I will pass it to Aaron.
Hello, my name is Aaron Tarango. I'm a program manager in the grants department at the district. And who's left there? Page.
Your boss?
Yes, Todd there. I'm looking for Todd. Todd. I'm here. There he is. There's Todd. I was looking for there's another page. Sorry. So there you go, Todd.
Good afternoon. My name is Todd DeYoung. I'm the Director of Grants and Incentives. My group is in charge of sort of implementing the CERT measures, obviously including vegetative barriers and urban greening. So we're very excited to sort of move this process along and get some trees planted in the ground. That might be it, unless I'm missing anybody. I'm not seeing anybody else from the district.
Yeah, I think it's all from your team. We're just missing Erika. Erika, we cannot hear you. You're muted.
That's the phone.
I'm double muted. Hi there, Erica Manuel with ILG. We help facilitate some of the meetings in Fresno, and excited to listen in today because in another life, I used to run a program on vegetation management, and we help pull a lot of vegetation management and tree planting in the Sacramento County area. So super excited to see what you guys come up with today.
Hey, you're going to be an honorary member of this group.
No, I'm purely listening in. I just love the process of the program, and I'm excited there's so much interest in this. And I'm with my colleague Hannah today as well.
Go ahead, everyone. Go ahead. Well, thank you, everyone. As I said, I know we all have a very busy schedules, and if you don't mind, I will go ahead and share my screen so I can share with you the proposed agenda that we have put together. Again, my apologies that I didn't have time to share this with you when the Zoom or the doodle poll went out, but I hope, as you saw, that there is proposed agenda. So feel free to chime in and say, hey, you're missing this and that. So I'll run us through the agenda, and then we're gonna go at the top of the agenda. So we already did introductions. The next item is to ask briefly to Yesenia and Aurelio to introduce themselves, being them the fellows that will be helping us move these two strategies forward. Then I put it, of course, to remind ourselves, because it has been a year since our SERP was approved, which are the two strategies from the SERP that we will be talking about today. Then I have a proposed first objective for us, right? Because there's these two big and very general strategies, but we need to break it down into manageable steps. So I put there for your consideration what would be a first objective. And this came out of our previous discussion that we have with this subcommittee. And it is broken down into different activities. And then let me move us to the next. Then we just next steps. So with that, are there any observations, any suggestions of things that I'm missing here on the agenda that you would like to be added?
A real quick question. Is this the first time we're seeing these activities?
Yes, as I said, Lisa, I did not have time to share this. And that's why it's a proposed agenda, so you guys can make any suggestions right now.
Can you email it to me? And if I have anything else to say, I will email it back to you.
Absolutely, no problem. While I give the floor to Aurelio and Yesenia to introduce themselves, I'll go ahead and send this to you, Lisa, and anybody else. Of course, as I said, this is a proposed agenda, so feel free to say, just ask for something to be added right now, and I can do it right away. So anyone else in addition to Lisa that would like to receive the agenda or would like to add anything?
I think we also need to talk about money.
Okay. Where would you like to see that? At the top, at the bottom? Where would you like to see that?
We need to start talking about money and how we're going to allocate it to the different activities, like a budget, maybe.
So would you like to have that right after the reminder of the SERP strategies? Like here?
We can do it after the, let's make it number 5.
Okay.
Because then that way you get everything fleshed out, and then you know where your money's going to be, where you're going to start to think about putting your money.
Sounds like a plan.
Thank you.
Okay, well, will I send you the agenda? Please, Aurelio, let's start with ladies first. Yesenia, do you want to introduce yourself? And then I will ask Aurelio to do the same, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yesenia Venegas, and I'll be working with CCEJN on urban greening and vegetative barriers. It's nice to meet all of you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aurelio Mendoza, and I'll be working with CCEJN as well. I'm glad to be here and looking to contribute to vegetative barriers. Thank you.
Well, welcome.
All right,
thank you. Thank you all for welcoming Yesenia and Aurelio. They already joined us for 2 weeks. So the first 2 weeks with us, I tried to bring them up to speed on what was AB 617, what was a community, how we end up creating this massive plan. So they have already been provided all that information. So with that, let's just go directly to the purpose of our meeting. As a reminder, in last year when we approved or they approved the CERT, there were two strategies that related to urban greening and vegetative barriers. So as you can see here, I put them down in the agenda. So one is BB1, incentive program for the installation of vegetative barriers around or near sources of pollution. And the other one is increase urban greening and forestry to improve air quality and mitigate urban heat effects. These are very broad strategies that could be implemented in different ways. So based on the notes that I took, my personal notes of our last meeting as a subcommittee, I know that Lisa in particular was very concerned that we didn't miss the season for a tree planting activity, and that should be our first thing that we start planning. And that's why the first objective that I have here is organize a tree planting activity in April, but I totally would defer to Mona and others who have more expertise on tree planting. And where we do this tree planting, the idea is will be in locations that are more exposed to air pollution, but also that they are prioritized by the steering committee and by community members. So in order to break this down into more specific activities, these are the things that are the team, Yesenia, Aurelio, and I discussed. But again, this is just a first brainstorming. So first, and going back to Lisa's point, we need to know the money. We need to know how much money is going to cost to do all this. So we will start by conducting an analysis of the budget that will be needed for at least this tree planting activity. And the Climate Corp fellows will be in charge of conducting this analysis and presenting it to all of us. Then what we thought was important was to identify the hotspots. Where are these trees more needed? And since there's a lot more monitors that have been deployed since the last year and a half, it will be very good if we can get from the Air District an analysis of some of the areas where they have seen more hotspots because there has been higher levels of PM or other pollutants. And that was something that we would hope the Air District can provide us. And then we can cross-reference these hotspots with other aspects that are needed to plant the trees, such as, is there irrigation available? What about the sunlight? What about the soil health and even the maintenance? Who will be responsible and able to do the maintenance? And here we can add any more things that you can think of that are needed for these consideration. Then the other idea would be to vet these selected locations first with us, the subcommittee, that presented to the larger steering committee for prioritization, and then not leave it there, but actually vet it to the community members at large. And that would entail a participatory process that would consist of a variety of activities. We just put a couple of ideas here, maybe collect surveys at public events, having SurveyMonkey circulated among the networks that we all have, just to mention a few. And that's just one objective with several ideas of how we can make it happen, and being that the first activity. And of course, we will need to then talk about the money. So I'll stop there. And is it helpful for me to keep this on the screen, or should I stop sharing?
Keep it on the screen.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like it.
So the floor is yours, guys.
Well, from the Tree Fresno perspective, I would say the number one question is who controls the property. So this is this sort of determines how you get the right to actually plant on the property. So this is it's inconvenient, but it's what makes the process a little bit more drawn out. So are you working with individual homeowners, or are you working with, you know, are you planting on Caltrans or city property? Though I think it would be really, really helpful to, do you have some sites already identified, especially if you're going to plant in a couple of months? you really need to already have a site identified where it's already permitted.
Thank you. That's an excellent observation. I'm taking notes. So having the owner of that property on board and with like the green light ready, it's super important.
And I don't know what your requirements are. We have requirements of designated irrigation to each of our 15-gallon trees. I don't know what you're planting, if you're planting 15-gallon or if you're planting a specific species. I assume that there's some parameters too. I'm sorry, I haven't looked into the details. But
well, no, in reality, as you could see, the only parameters that we have so far in terms of, and of course the CARB team is here and the Air District, correct me if I'm wrong, because the money is going to come from eventually or a match of that money will come from the CARB, AB 617 funding. And so I would ask both CARB and the Air District to clarify these aspects. If there's any restrictions of the type of trees that we have to plant or any guidelines that there are for how this funding is spent. I don't know that those type of details, Mona. That's a really good question.
I don't know the CARB. We don't have anybody from incentives here. I know a little bit about it, but if the district wants to handle it, go first. They can. It's a
Todd or Jamie, do you have any insight of any specifications about what kind of trees we can purchase with these funds?
Todd, do you know those answers by any chance?
No, I do not have that information in front of me. I don't think there's anything specific, but we'll have to look into that to see if there's any.
I will make a suggestion. There are a lot of the grants, and I'm just throwing this out here, but even with our high-speed rail grant, they tend to go along so CAL FIRE sort of has a group of trees, at least a couple dozen trees that are the starting point for planting in the Central Valley. So obviously drought tolerant, water-wise trees, and that are good for this terrain. So that kind of, almost for everything that we do, even if it's actually out of a different pot of money, we look to those trees first. And then if we ask for exceptions outside of that, as long as they're drought tolerant and are approved by CAL FIRE. So it's a great starting point. 15-gallon is more likely to survive into the future with some level of irrigation over the course of 3 years.
Well, that's an excellent suggestion. And we were already thinking that we were going to prioritize drought tolerant trees. So any recommendations that you have of which type of those trees are better for our area will be great.
Okay. And have you seen the West Fresno Community Landscapes Plan that was produced recently? It was not very long ago, probably in the fall. And I can send a link to that. Jamie, do you have that yet? Jamie Holt? Okay. I'll send that to you all so that, because it's publicly accessible and there's quite an investment by Fresno COG into that. Well, actually on our part for Tree Fresno, but through a grant from Fresno COG to produce a document that would actually sort of guide our urban greening in that area of the city.
What is the name of the document?
It's called the West Fresno Community Landscapes Plan, and it is now available at a link on Fresno COG. So Fowler has one, and also West Fresno. So it's a great sort of guideline, ideal, for urban greening. It even highlights particular properties in that region of the city. So it's a good resource to draw upon. And in it, you will see actually even portraits of the plants that we recommend and use in the valley for drought resistance.
Wonderful. Thank you for all these suggestions.
I totally agree upon the drought tolerant species of plants, but I also think that regarding where to put them, we should also be able to open it up to renters and provide renters with a document that their homeowners, the owners of the property, sign off on, allowing the tree to be planted on the property. And he approves, and they would approve of where the tree would be planted. That way you have a wider net to cast as far as the community, because you have to think you're in a community where a lot of people are renters and not owners. So
I think that's a great suggestion.
Thank you, Lisa. I also would like to ask specifically Isabel, because I know she has brought up these at several meetings. Isabel, ¿quiere decir lo que usted decía de dónde le gustaría que se plantaran los árboles?
Sí, yo pensaría que estaría bien, como les había comentado, todo donde se han quitado los árboles, que se han secado, han dejado nada más los troncos ahí, pero ya esos árboles se perdieron. Entonces, la idea es de que vuelvan a plantar otro árbol, todo en el lugar que quedó vacío del árbol que se quitó.
¿Y esto es como en dónde, en qué partes de la ciudad, en parques o en vecindarios?
En la calle, en las calles.
En las calles,
En las calles se han secado muchos árboles y los han cortado, pero pues ya se queda el lugar vacío.
And those were her comment where was that where trees have already been removed, some of those trees have dried up, or with the drought have are no longer living, and so that's where she thinks it's just throughout the city. That's where she thinks that those need to be replanted.
That's a very good suggestion, and it's actually one of the ways that we work with the city most effectively is when a resident has actually identified locations where there may already be irrigation or access to irrigation available. So I kind of look at those as low-hanging fruit. So as long as the tree is already removed and there's a well there, then we can often work with the city to actually plant trees.
Well, I have a question. Do we want to be supplementing the budget and the duty of the city, or do we want to look outside of, here's what the city landscape is. The city is responsible for that landscape. Do we want to look beyond that and actually look at homeowners and residents and businesses that are along the areas that we identify? And what would that split look like financially?
So I can say from Tree Fresno's point of view that often the tree will not be replaced. So working with the city on at least a certain percentage of your trees would be, I think, a wise decision. I like the idea of working with homeowners as well, but homeowners also and renters, residents actually get benefit from actually putting in those new city trees where they haven't been replanted. So I think it's really important to understand that a lot of trees won't just be replanted by the city, even though we're encouraging them on the investment. Usually the part where they can come in is irrigation, and that's most critical, and they're going to be assuming long-term maintenance costs as well. And there's sort of an education process, I think, going on at this point about that investment in urban trees actually pays off in the long run. So I think the city of Fresno is actually moving that direction, but there still needs to be some input, I can say, from our part of actually bringing the tree to the whole.
Hey, Mona, I have a quick question. It's actually a question Ed brought up in the chat, and he asked if it was possible, could you have plants and then have the irrigation lines, which I'm used to, or could you also plant trees and then have the watering done by a vehicle, like a water tank go by? Is that common at all?
It's unsustainable.
Yeah.
That last part of the question, at least, is that we sometimes have to hand water trees. Say, for example, in Woodward Park, there's a place where we take care of a grove of trees, and it's not enough. Our climate is is not conducive to that. I won't say it never works. You know, if you're a homeowner and you have a tree and you're dedicated to that tree, it can
Doesn't work in
survive.
my yard.
Yeah, it can survive, but the reality is, for us, it actually is not a sustainable way to plant a tree for decades of growth.
Of course. Thanks, Mona.
Hey, I would like to make a comment about Lisa's question, that if we're kind of like taking, you know, part of the responsibility of the city, I would defer that to what we will be finding out through this consultation process, right? Because I think that we are going to be just one layer in terms of saying this might be good spaces for the trees, but I think that we should also have a more democratic process where residents like Isabel, and who knows, maybe her neighbors are of the same opinion, that they would like to see trees there where they were all trees and now there's nothing. So, you know, I think that it could be a combination. It could be some places where there is a private property there because there's a renter or a property owner that would make that commitment to maintain the tree. But then there's could also be places like the ones that Isabel brought up, where if we don't put the trees, the city is not going to put them. And, you know, I think this is a process that can combine both, not only, you know, one or the other.
So just a quick question. Are we using the hands up or not?
I cannot see anything because I'm projecting my screen. So
so I just want, if you don't mind, this is Kevin. I just wanted to make two comments really quickly. One is with regard to the trees, one of my biggest concerns, and Tree Fresno does this very well. The city has not had that kind of history, at least based in my front yard on my curb, but choosing trees that we know are allergy safe, that's really critical. Okay. And so getting advice from the experts on that. And there's a list of those that's easy to add into this process. And then the second thing, just reinforcing, working with the city to make sure that they do replant trees. In my neighborhood, again, it's an old neighborhood, 40 years old or more, and the tree went down in front of my house. They did come finally and clean it all up, but I had to replant a tree almost 2 years later while I was waiting for them because they just never did. So, and I got it from Tree Fresno, interestingly enough, but for free. But I don't understand that, and I don't know how we fix that. Is there somebody from Fresno City that's going to be involved in this conversation, or maybe they're already here and I just don't know it, that we could talk to about this?
Not right now, Kevin, and that's something that we certainly, but you're right. We are wanting to bring all the different stakeholders that are going to have a say in this, either because they're going to maintain the tree, like the city hopefully would, and also because the city has programs that are already doing tree planting. So we also want to be aware of what those efforts are, where those efforts are happening, so we can, you know, spread the love and not, you know, concentrate in one area only. But we had a meeting yesterday with some of the people of the city who are part of the steering committee, but they were trying to pinpoint who within the city it's you know, has more information about this, so they're not here today.
I will say your connector to that
Thank
and
you.
somebody who's making things work is Mark Standriff of Beautify Fresno. So he's able to help me connect the dots with DPW and parks. And so because that is his primary duty at this point, and part of that, he has two Climate Action Corps fellows at the moment that their project is also planting trees. So I think reaching out to him, he's really helping us to get things done and to be able to, you're right, it's a multifaceted approach, and I need to know sometimes you know, details that are different from project to project, and I don't know who to ask. You know, we need to do an expansion on the Eaton Trail, and I don't even know who really controls the property, and so we need to access maps. And so it makes it a lot easier if you have somebody who's in a role who is actually going to be engaged about that project, that progress. So I think Mark would be good.
I'll follow up with you, Mona, to get his information. Thank you. So before we move, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. And I mean, I think it might be helpful we're sort of talking about two different concepts here. We're talking about vegetative barriers and urban greening. And I know we sort of combine them because obviously they're related, but I think we need to start talking about specific projects, and because they're different enough. Vegetative barriers, you're talking about, installing a line of trees along a school fence line or something like that, to mitigate the impacts of a road or a highway on the other side, versus, what we've sort of drifted into here is talking about more urban greening, which is, planting trees in neighborhoods and getting, residents involved and planting, specific trees in specific areas. I think we ought to maybe focus on one area first and maybe see if we can sort of come up with an action plan for moving one of those areas forward.
I think, I hear what you're saying, Todd, but if you see again, this recommendation of doing a tree planting activity as a first step was something that this subcommittee discussed and almost reached a consensus when we met, a couple of months ago. And a tree planting activity, as broad as it is, as I have it in this objective right now, it could fit either or, because we are not yet saying, it's kind of leading into that direction right now with the discussion that we have, that it's gonna be more about urban greening because of how we were discussing where to plant the trees. But planting the trees can also be, if we do it in the school, like the project that Mona was describing, it could be a vegetative barrier. So I think that tree planting activity could serve the two strategies, depending on where we do it and how we do it. So again, I would like just to bring us back to the fundamental thing here. Are we still in agreement that that's the route we want to go down? Organizing a tree planting activity, and if the timeline that we have, and I will defer to maybe Mona for more direction in terms of the feasibility of the timeline, if that's where we want to go, and then we can discuss if we confirm that, then we can discuss, we want to do this tree planting for vegetative barrier, and that will totally, be very specific parameters, or if we are doing urban greening. I didn't want to settle for one. That's why I left it very broad.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Hey, Naimeen, I appreciate that. It's Ryan. Sorry for not being here when the meeting first started. Apologize. I think just want to talk to Todd's point a little bit about the SERP itself and the commitments that are in the SERP. And I apologize profusely, and please, anybody that thinks this has already been covered, please stop me. The SERP commitment for vegetative barriers, there's specific funding that has been included in the SERP to cover that, and so that's kind of defined as projects like Todd was talking about, where you at least in our the way that we've seen it done and what we were planning would be, if people have projects that they want to do, they would submit an application and then it could get funded for that project. The urban greening measure was more of a looking for resources, looking to work with people to identify funding streams, coordinating hopefully with, obviously with Mona and Tree Fresno and these other things to move forward with that measure. I think what Todd, the other thing, so since this is completely novel, we've been having to do research on how to put together this project plan to submit to CARB. And we've been talking with other air districts who are also had a measure like this in their SERPs. And the first one has just been submitted, and we've been talking to CARB if it's going to meet the requirements and understanding, and not looking to overwhelm the system, since there's a lot of districts, and once we knew this was going to be an issue of community identified projects getting submitted and needing to be reviewed, and that there was going to be time. And we've explained to the steering committee with the previous plans that we've submitted. It's taken about 2 months to get those approved. And so just really want to make sure that the steering committee members that are on here understand we're looking to get this thing in super quick. And I know Todd and his team have been working hard to get it done. And we're hopeful that, hopefully that Imperials gets approved. And if we have a similar enough model that, ours could be then approved pretty quickly after that. But you're still talking maybe a month and a half to get approval for that. And we can't fund anything until we get that approval. And just want to make sure that everybody understands that. I don't want that to stop any of the progress in working with everybody on this. I think that this is an important subcommittee, and doing the work beforehand isn't going to be a detriment in any way. It's just we want to make sure that everybody understands timelines and
Thank you. That was extremely important because I had not that understanding. I didn't understand of what you just described. I thought that the funding that we or that was allocated for these strategies, I do recall seeing the word matching, so that it's money that has to be matched. That I remember, but I did not remember that the funding was just exclusively for the vegetative barriers and not for the urban greening. So
yeah.
And then, so if that's the case, I do also remember that when the START was approved on February 13 of last year by CARB board, there was also included in the resolution, the amended resolution that was finally approved, that for funding allocations or reallocations for that matter, that the Air District had to consult with the steering committee. So if we put this there and the steering committee recommends to relocate the money, and now it's considering that it's okay to put money towards the urban greening projects, I think that's something that could still be on the table, correct?
Correct. I mean, we just have to talk about it with the steering committee as a whole, and obviously any change, and this is another the question that we have for CARB is process-wise, what that, since no one's done that yet, no one's gone back and amended a SERP, and
but we are always the first on everything, Ryan. So don't
we
you
are,
be worried
we are,
about that.
Naomi, we are first and the best, right? First and the best steering committees, absolutely.
And the modest of all.
Yeah, yeah, but that'd be navigating uncharted waters, and we're happy to talk to CARB about that and understand what the necessary steps on that would be. But I'd imagine that's something that has to go back before our board, probably for amending the SERP, since it is a district board approved, CARB board approved. But just I think we just need to figure out what that process looks like.
Okay.
And I mean, from CARB's perspective, we would do everything we could to help speed that along, because believe it or not, Fresno is one of the few communities that put dollar amounts, San Joaquin Valley, next to their strategies, which we really appreciated compared to other communities, but we wouldn't want to see you penalized for that because you came up with that added information. So yeah, it is a new process, and some SERPs don't have dollar amounts attached like you all did, which I think is a good thing. It's a starting point, right? So yeah, we'd be willing to work with the Air District and the steering committee to figure out a way to make that process quick.
Okay.
Well, Brian, thank you for that, because I think that might have been one of my ideas that actually stuck. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that we could actually do some tree planting as part of a grander and future barrier implementation, especially in the region in which the truck study is going to be dealt with, because we're going to be coming up on doing the truck study, and that's going to start, and that is really going to tell us where the vegetation barriers need to be. But in the meantime, if we plant trees within that project area of the truck study that are missing from the land that is owned by the city on the city easements, then that actually will help with the barrier decision further down the pike, I think, of what needs to be happening.
And Lisa, I'm going to sort of join that. I didn't know if you guys would want to, if I was going to make this too fluffy or not, but I think it's actually important how we interact with the community. And I was thinking that perhaps we have a really great project that's in the works that will probably the first 3 weeks, or maybe the 3 weeks in March, we'll be planting like nearly 400 trees along 99 in Southwest, between Southwest and Southeast. And it's in an industrial area. That's a large planting, and it's along a busy roadway. And they are actually going to be, basically a vegetative screen of an industrial site that's being built from the ground up. So I'm looking at it as a great showcase, like opportunity for this company to be able to serve as a model for other companies who might build from the ground up to work with us or with CARB or with trying to figure out like how to be a better neighbor to the community. So I would, if there's a desire, because I'm going to be trying to talk to the company owners, trying to talk them into actually allowing us to have volunteer plantings at that site. If there's a desire, perhaps we could bring you in as sort of like a partner in that, so that you can, I don't know what your outreach is right now to the community, but we could invite those in, and it shows activity. And you're actually, it's funded by high-speed rail. So it's under the rail line, and it's 361 trees that are they're basically a perimeter planting. So I think it could be really a powerful sort of like visual and an engagement opportunity for the community in that particular region of Fresno. So if you want that, let me know. I'm going to continue to work because I want that for sure. I think that people have been asking.
Which is the company that you are referring to?
Sure. It's Green Valley Recycling.
Okay.
Do you know where the Jesus is Lord, that granary or that building just off of 99 and I think it's Cedar?
99 and North.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's that particular landscape, and it's going to be amazing to see those trees growing up within that landscape and right under high-speed rail.
Well, I mean, I cannot decide for the committee, but I do think it's a great opportunity to help. And this is just right on the edge of the AB 617 area, if I'm not mistaken. And
that's in the community.
And that would be a way to get us off the ground and getting some expertise on doing tree planting. And as you're saying, starting the engagement component for this, because if this is not going to be the only one, that this is a good way to start.
Right. And it's already funded. So it's funded by high-speed rail. So it's an opportunity. Basically, you come out as a partner, as a group, because you have a future in doing this as well. So we would welcome that as long as I can get approval by the company that we can do it.
What do others think?
I agree with that one. And getting the community involved, getting all of us involved to see it. I think I go to vegetative barriers more than urban greening at the moment, because I think we really need to get off on a good start on creating the barriers between our sensitive receptors and the industry so that we're protecting our neighbors. Cutting down on dust.
Wherever we can combine the two, I think that's, if we can identify those opportunities where high density roadways are running right through the neighborhood in front of people's homes. Wherever that happens, which happens a lot, especially in South Fresno, that's an opportunity. And I can name streets like Tulare and Cedar and, the list, I could go on. And examples of further north in town where they've addressed that with a better set of tree planting and vegetative barriers. Some, of course, privately provided by owners, others, it seems the city may have put in, I don't know. But I think that's the real win for the neighborhoods. And then we already identified along in the planning process for the city, as far as their general plan, the idea of putting some of these barriers along some of these rail lines that again are passing through people's backyards. And there's an opportunity there. So it'd be great if part of the committee could maybe work on mapping those out or hearing from neighbors in neighborhoods, where those spots lie and really focusing on that.
One thing that I omit, because I knew we just had an hour and we are 1 hour short of that hour being completed, is that this was just one of the many things we can do for our two broad strategies. But definitely the goal of both Aurelio and Yesenia are to help us not only organize one tree planting activity, but actually developing a plan of how all these different elements are going to take place beyond their fellowship that ends in July. So yes, we could start with this tree planting, and we can start by partnering with Tree Fresno and helping them with that particular activity in March, while we plan for one of our own, either as a vegetative barrier or as an urban greening project. And then, and it could be a combination of both, and we just have like a plan that we can implement over the course of several years, and starting with this collaborative project in March.
And I actually attached a photo. I don't know if you can show it from the chat. When you see this property, you'll see why it's really a great example of actually vegetative screening. We just happen to be getting ready to plant this particular site. I think it's fortuitous because normally we're planting trees here and there. And this one is just, it clearly is a vegetative screen. So if you'd like to do that, let me know. I have to jump off the call.
Yeah, I'll follow up with you, Mona, to see how we can help, and if which of the steering committee members would like to be involved. At least CCJN is on board.
Okay,
for sure.
And I think my Climate Action Corps fellows will remain on the call, or at least one of them. So let me know. We're happy to help and to encourage. And like I said, this project is already paid for. So come out as volunteers. We can even put your branding on a flyer and we put it out. We do controlled like COVID-19 protocol plantings now. So we know how to do it.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
We'll be in touch. Bye. Okay, well, we're at 5:01. I know we run out of time, but can we just recap on what are our agreements and what do we want to be our next steps, especially because I imagine we will be reporting tomorrow at our large steering committee meeting?
This is Genevieve. I think the next steps that you outlined in the agenda is a really good starting place, especially with the little confusion about what money is available and if the money has to be matched with another state program, then I feel like we need to start there and identify what other state grant programs we need to be looking at and applying to, or if we can just run with the Vegetative Barriers project on our own with the funding that's been outlined. But I wanted to bring back the map that had been shared to the Community Steering Committee months ago, which asked residents where they would like to see trees planted in the community. And I'm thinking maybe that map could be reshared again so we can start to get more input into where people are really coalescing around. And then perhaps the Air District could use that to start examining locations.
When would that map was shared? I don't recall.
It was the end, maybe beginning of fall, and we did like an exercise. So it has been a while.
I think the exercise was in August.
August.
So we shared it again in the September meeting.
Definitely, I think it will be very important to have that as a element of identifying these locations. So in terms of the other suggestions that Aurelia and Yesenia were making about using also some of the data that was that it's been collected through the monitors to identify if there were certain areas or hotspots in some neighborhoods or communities that we could also target. Is that something that the group wants to pursue? And if so, who would within the air district we will need to work with? Would that be you, Jessica?
I think this would be probably in our grants department, maybe?
Yeah, that's
Oh, no, no?
For the data, for the analysis of the
Oh,
airport?
no, I apologize. I was thinking something.
I'm like,
I
okay.
saw Todd's face.
Todd, you have a new role now.
I'm now the air monitoring guy.
I officially dubbed Todd air monitoring guy.
Sweet.
Nice.
That makes it easy. Yeah, I could certainly be that person.
Okay, perfect, Jessica. And then that way, what do you guys thought about the idea of having some sort of a survey that we use internally with the steering committee, but also publicly to get more feedback to identify those locations for tree planting?
Yeah, so that survey is kind of what I think Genevieve was saying. It was a map survey, so it's sort of like a tool where you could, here, maybe I'll try to open it up.
I just put it in the chat.
Oh, perfect, yes. Yeah, so it was, so yes, I think what we think about it is that's a great idea, and we should definitely, maybe we'll re-engage that.
Okay, and then one question that I have in terms of money, Ryan. So for if, and this is also depending what the group wants to do, do we want to stick to the idea of organizing some sort of tree planting activity for this spring? Do we have the time and the money, or because we're
gonna work hard. I mean, and I think the other part of that is obviously that there needs to be the group to do the work and to submit the Todd, the term is slipping my
application.
The application for the project
plan.
Yeah.
But can you say a little more about that? If this is a group, if we are the group, you know, a combination of a business person, well, two representatives of businesses, partners like Tree Fresno, CCJN, but also residents. If we are the group, which of us would submit the application?
Well, it depends. Like for vegetative barriers, like Tree Fresno could say, hey, we have this project that we want to do. It would install vegetative barriers around 5 schools. They would submit the project plan to us. You know, once we get the community identified project plan approved by CARB, then we could fund those types of projects. Once we receive that, review it, make sure that it meets all the requirements in the project plan, then we would be able to fund that. I mean, and I forgot one really key step, and that's obviously we have to go to our board to create new programs. So I forgot to mention that. So once we get it approved by CARB, we have to get it approved by our board as a new program that we have the authority to oversee. And so that would also be a step.
I'd like to add approval by the community steering committee as well.
Yeah.
And what about, but that would include either or both vegetative barrier project or urban greening, or both of them can be submitted, or you were just saying just one of them at the beginning of the meeting?
Excuse me, can I suggest, I've actually, one of the things I used to do over at Caltrans when I worked for the state was I actually used to review grants and help people go through them. And I probably could actually write this up, but then again, I'm not paid staff. I would do your first phase of grants for the trees, but also have a checkbox if people are interested in barriers. I would also encourage Todd to start gathering addresses of the community members along the major thoroughfares within the project area, so you can send them postcards to announce, here is this tree planting program, here is a vegetation barrier program, applications are available, call this number, we'll mail it to you, so you don't have to worry about people having the internet, people not having printers and all that. because you really need to go out to the public more than we have been. And I don't see anybody doing direct mailers out to the community. And I think that's very important when you are offering up trees, or you ask people, you may not want a grant, but do you know someplace where a tree would be good along the streets that the city's not filling? But you can actually do it in a round of also grants where you do the trees first, but you also look to see if where these people want trees placed, is that also going to dovetail in with the barriers? That's all I got to say.
So what would be the process, Ryan? I think that, we're getting too much into the weeds of the development of the grant application process.
Oh, and the process would be basically that all the applications should actually come to the community, to us, the voting members of AB 617. They should be looked at by the by staff and organized of, high risk, low, high approval, low approval, and the reasons why they're low approval and why they're high approval. Like, for example, what is the criteria for approval? Is the criteria for approval, is it in a project area in which we're looking at barriers? Is it replacing trees that weren't replaced by the city? Is it just somebody that wants a tree? I mean, what is the criteria?
So going back to what Genevieve was saying about we want input as far as the project plans, if there's thoughts, ideas. But once we open up the projects, for example, now there's probably limited partners that do like vegetative barriers, and definitely probably one of those situations where they're looking to work with someone like the AB 617 Community Steering Committee, and the steering committee can have a lot of say in helping them work on project plans that the steering committee values. But for example, if there was a program for the urban greening measure where trees were given to people, it definitely wouldn't be a situation where we'd bring every single person that asks for a tree. If they live in the AB 617, they would get a tree. If that's the way that the program was designed. It's similar to, if someone applies to put in, charging infrastructure or something else that's in the SERP, provided that it's in the AB 617, if we have the program up, then they would qualify for it, and we would look to fund that, because in the end, we want to get as many of these things done in the limited timeframes that we have. And we have to spend, like, a big thing that can't be forgotten in this process is we have to spend the money. And if we spend so much time saying we're going to fund this, we're not going to fund that's potentially lost projects. And we definitely don't want to be in a situation where we're losing out on projects that will benefit the people that are living in the communities with these emission reduction projects. So I think that's just another thing that I want to, bring to everybody's attention and remind. And it's not because we're not looking to take input or hear feedback, but it's also, finding that balance between that and also fulfilling the commitments there in the SERP, and just understanding that the clock is ticking, it's limited time. We have to get these things going and start funding these and getting emission reductions as a result of it, and exposure reductions, which is important to also know.
We're 512, sorry for being so bad in managing our time. Erika, I need classes from you and how to keep a meeting going. So what would be a good time for us to meet again and get more details on these questions that we don't have answers for right now? Is 2 weeks too soon? Do we do 3 weeks? When do we want to meet again as a subgroup?
Anytime works for me.
I think the sooner the better, so 2 weeks.
Okay, do you want to, so I would then ask Son if she can send us a doodle poll for the last week of February, and then we can find a time to meet again.
And can we ask staff for how they're going to outreach and get community input?
Well, that was part of the what we were discussing as a committee, Lisa. I don't think it's going to be the staff telling us, it's us how we want to do it. So if you guys, after this meeting, I'm gonna send to everyone the agenda that I didn't share before. I apologize, with some notes. And please feel free to add there any ideas. I think we can start with what we have there, and we can flesh out more ideas as to how are we gonna get community input for all these activities.
But I also think that staff should come to the table with a jumping off point for us to discuss. So we're not starting from, ground zero. Because we need to get this thing moving along. That's all.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying, that that was what I was trying to explain, that would be Yesenia and Alonso. Well, Alonso,
Okay.
you can help too. Alonso, bring him in. Alonso and Aurelio's role to help us moving between meetings.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
This is Aurelio. Hearing what Ryan was sharing about this, the month and a half, this meeting, this sounds like this is going to be a very crucial step in order to mobilize a lot of the efforts. Now, is there more information that you can share that we can read up on that, Ryan?
So as soon as we have the project plan done, we'll, like what we've done in the past, Aurelio, is we've sent it out to the steering committee, and we've also posted it on our website. So if there's any thoughts or concerns, ideas, suggestions, we could take that feedback. What we've seen from Imperial, they kept it pretty basic, and that's good, because then hopefully with that model it gets approved pretty quick by CARB. It sounded like within hopefully a few weeks it gets approved, and if that's the case, if we take a similar model, then it should go through what we were told today. It should go through pretty quickly, which is our hope. And then obviously then we got to take it to our board right away and be able to open that up. But
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you again all for staying 16 minutes past the hour. I appreciate your time, and look forward to the email Song will send with a doodle poll for the last week of February and my notes of this meeting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Adiós, Isabel y Estela. Bye.
Okay.
Hey, Jamie, was that Lil Wayne in the background?
Oh, yeah. Oh, Lisa, if you can see, I got to show you this. The reason I'm at home right now.
What?